The orbital station Celestia drifted like a bright ring over a blue and white world. It was huge, full of gardens, halls, and long windows that showed the stars. Many kinds of aliens lived and worked there. They came for trade, science, and peace. On this day they came for something new, to welcome humans into the galactic Concord. Ambassador Juno Alaric stood behind a clear lectern in the main forum. She wore a neat navy suit with a silver pin of earth on the lapel. Her brown hair was tied back. Her voice was calm and warm, and the translator lights on the ceiling glowed softly as they changed her words into dozens of languages. "Thank you for inviting us," she said. "We are excited to share who we are." The forum was full. Seats rose from the center in curved tiers like a shell. In the first rows sat a group of tall bird-like scholars with glassy feathers. Behind them, a cluster of gentle, mossy beings sat on wet pads. A trio of soft-boned swimmers in floating tanks bubbled with interest, and a pair of tiny, cube-bodied robots watched with little blinking eyes. There were many more species, each unique. Together they made a living map of the galaxy. Juno began with simple things. She showed pictures of Earth. Deep oceans, green forests, desert dunes, and high snowy mountains. She spoke about human art and songs. She showed photos of scientists, farmers, nurses, teachers, and small children laughing in parks. She explained that humans were curious. They liked to explore, to make, to learn. They made mistakes, but they also tried to do better. The crowd listened. They hummed and pulsed and blinked in their own ways to show they understood. So far, everything was smooth. The station's air smelled like citrus and metal. The light was bright but soft. Juno felt steady. She moved on to a basic part of the civic overview. It was part of every new member's talk. It was about how a species lived, how it grew, and how it raised its young. "Next," Juno said, "I will discuss human biology and development." The translator lights brightened. On the screen behind her, a simple chart appeared. It showed cells, then an embryo, then a fetus, then a baby, then a child. It was a simple, clean graphic. No details, nothing private, just a clear path of life. Most conquered species did not reproduce in the same way. Many used careful cloning or seed banks. Some used light-based division inside crystal halls. Others budded during a certain season and cared for their young as a community. A few grew children inside machines, so every child had a safe, stable start. These methods were normal to them. They were calm, planned, and free of chance. Juno said, "Humans reproduce by combining the genetic material of two parents. The process is personal. It is a partnership. It is not done by a machine." She paused, ready to move on quickly because she knew this part could cause confusion. But she did not move on fast enough. In the third row sat Kathiri, a diplomat from a crystalline species called the Eltari. Kathiri's body looked like a tall prism, with facets that glowed from within. Their hands were delicate, many-fingered, and made soft chiming sounds when they touched the seat rail. The Eltari reproduced by directing light through a cathedral of mirrors. When the light reached a certain harmony, a new Eltari would split away, fully formed, then rest for a cycle before learning to speak. It was peaceful, precise, and public, like a ceremony. Kathiri's glow brightened. Their inner lights twinkled like tiny stars. They lifted a hand. "Ambassador Juno," Kathiri said, voice like wind on crystal. "Did you say partnership? As in two persons together by choice, without a civic schedule? Without a mirror cathedral? Without a council's permission?" Juno smiled in a calm way. "Yes, it is by choice. It is often private. It is guided by care and by consent. It is not a civic ceremony." A hush fell over the forum. The bird-like scholars ruffled their feathers. The watery trio in the tanks made bubbles in soft surprise. The mossy beings pressed their fronds close together as if whispering. Kathiri tilted their faceted head. Their glow shifted. They sounded amazed and a little delighted. "Wait," they said, "humans reproduce like that? Can I try too?" The hush became a wave of small noises. Some aliens hummed with curiosity. Others made soft, confused murmurs. A few looked alarmed. Juno felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She had prepared for many kinds of questions, but not this exact phrasing. She lifted both hands in a gentle stop, then lowered them again. "Thank you for your interest," she said kindly. "But human reproduction is not a thing to try as if it were a new food. It is a relationship. It is very personal. It is not a public demonstration or a tourism activity. We also have strict rules of consent and health." Kathiri listened. Their glow dimmed slightly like a thoughtful sigh. "I understand consent in trade," they said. I understand consent in science. I do not yet understand consent in this, Juno nodded. That's okay. Consent means that both people fully agree, without pressure, and can change their minds at any time. It is about respect. It is about care. It is also about boundaries. The translator lights turned a pale gold. The room relaxed a little. A mossy being raised a frond. If it is private, they said, why speak of it here at all? Because it shapes our culture, Juno said. It shapes how we form families. It shapes how we build homes and schools. It shapes our art and our stories. It also shapes how we plan for health and how we care for parents and children. To know humans, you should know this part too, but we will speak of it respectfully and simply. Katheri's glow brightened again. They were curious, not rude. Their voice was soft, almost shy now. I do not want to offend. I am only excited because my people cannot imagine reproduction as a thing of feeling. We divide in a hall of mirrors, guided by elders, and the song of light makes a new self. It is calm and beautiful. It is also impersonal. It is duty. There is no choice, only timing. The idea that one might choose and care and build a life around that choice, this is new to me. It feels like a door opening. Juno's shoulders eased. Thank you for saying that. I understand your wonder. It is normal to be curious. We can share more about our families, our care for children, and the way we decide when to have them. But we will not share private details. We will not turn private acts into a public lesson. A gentle ripple of agreement moved through the forum. The bird-like scholars clicked their beaks in approval. The watery trio bobbed in their tanks. From the back, a conquered moderator rose. They were a tall being with soft gray skin and a calm, even voice. Perhaps, the moderator said, we can hold a special session on cultural models of family and care. In this session, all species can present how they raise young, how they teach, and how they pass on values. This will keep the talk respectful, and it will help us understand each other. Juno smiled. That sounds good. Katheri's inner light sparkled. I will attend, they said. May I also visit an Earth school? I wish to see how humans care for children. Of course, Juno said. We would be honored. The session continued. Juno showed pictures of schools with bright murals, libraries with long tables, and clinics where nurses smiled and spoke softly. She talked about paid leave, about grandparents reading stories, about community centers where parents helped each other. She spoke about adoption and foster care and about how families come in many shapes. She kept the language simple and clear. She made sure every image was respectful. She focused on kindness and structure and safety. The forum shifted from surprise to interest. Questions became less awkward and more thoughtful. A bird scholar asked, if there is so much feeling, does it lead to chaos? Juno said, sometimes there is confusion. But love and care can also make strong bonds. These bonds help us work together and solve problems. A mossy being asked, how do you make sure children are safe? Juno said, we have laws, schools, and social workers. We train parents. We share knowledge. We also learn from our mistakes. A cube robot asked, how do children learn if not from a central server? Juno laughed softly. They learn from teachers, books, and the world. They learn by asking questions. Sometimes they learn by failing and trying again. It takes time, but it builds minds that can adapt. Katheri listened to every answer. Sometimes their glow flickered as if they had a new thought. Sometimes they made a light chiming sound, as if they wanted to clap but did not know how. They seemed most touched by a video of a small human child planting a seed in a school garden. The child patted the soil with serious care, then looked up and grinned at the camera with dirt on their nose. Choice, Katheri whispered. Care, growth. After the talk, the forum shifted into a meet and greet. Tables appeared with snacks and drinks from many worlds. The air filled with gentle music. Juno moved through the crowd, smiling, answering questions, and accepting small gifts. She felt relief. The worst part, the awkward moment, was over. Yet she knew the moment would travel across the station fast. News moved quick on Celestia. People loved a surprise. Katheri approached with careful steps. Up close, their facets were beautiful like layers of ice. Their inner light was calm now, a steady aurora. Ambassador Juno, they said, I wish to apologize. My question was clumsy. I did not mean to turn your culture into a spectacle. Juno shook her head. You were curious. Curiosity is not an insult, but we must guide it with care. Juno's smile grew warmer. It is important. If you like, I can arrange a... The next morning, the orbital station Celestia felt louder than usual. The glass walls and shining halls carried soft echoes of hundreds of voices. News of yesterday's forum had spread quickly through the station's message nets. The headline on the public hollow board at the entrance said, "Human reproduction causes stir. Galactic Council to review cultural exchange policy." There were other headlines too. Curious crystals confused by humans. New species, new rules. Private or public? Concord debates culture. Juno Alaric walked through the long curved corridor toward the council chamber. She kept her back straight, but inside her heart thudded like a soft drum. She had known yesterday's moment would echo far, but not this far. Every passing alien looked at her with curious eyes. Some tilted their heads, some blinked lights, some made soft hums. She nodded politely to all of them. Behind her walked Kathiri, the crystalline ambassador who had asked the question that started it all. Today their glow was soft blue, calm but serious. They had spent the night studying words like consent, privacy, and personal. They had also sent a message to their own people on their homeworld explaining what happened. "I think I made a storm," Kathiri said softly as they walked. "You made a wave," Juno said kindly. "Storms hurt. Waves can be guided." Kathiri tilted their bright head. "Then let us guide this one." The chamber. The Galactic Council chamber was one of the grandest spaces on Celestia, a dome of light arched high above the floor. Tiered seats for alien delegates surrounded a central speaking circle. Translators hummed gently and light projectors painted soft shifting colors across the ceiling to show the calm status of the meeting. But today, the calm was thin. Delegates filled the seats early. Murmurs and low tones filled the air. Some aliens wore curious expressions. Others looked worried. A few whispered to each other in their own languages. Juno stepped into the chamber with Kathiri at her side. She wore the same neat suit as yesterday. She wanted to appear steady, not defensive. Council moderator Lynn, a tall, gray-skinned being with a quiet voice, stepped to the center. "The council will now review," Lini said. "Yesterday's presentation by the human ambassador led to many questions from multiple species. The topic is cultural exchange regarding family, reproduction, and care. This review will decide if humanity's ways are compatible with conquered standards of dignity and respect." A soft wave of light rolled across the ceiling, an official marker of seriousness. Juno breathed slowly, rising questions. The first to speak was a feathered scholar from the Avra people. Their feathers shimmered silver as they leaned forward. "We mean no insult," they said. "But human reproduction seems chaotic. There are no schedules, no council oversight. How can something so unpredictable fit into our careful conquered systems?" Juno stood and walked into the speaking circle. Her voice was calm and simple. "It is true," she said, "that human reproduction is not scheduled. It happens through personal choice between people. But this does not mean it is out of control. We have laws. We have education. We respect boundaries. We also care deeply for our children." Murmurs rose again. Then a mossy delegate, their fronds waving softly, spoke. "Choice is good. But if reproduction depends on emotion, can it also lead to problems? What if people make mistakes?" Juno nodded slowly. "Humans do make mistakes, but we also have ways to support families when that happens. Communities help. Governments help. Friends help. That is what makes us strong. Not perfection, but support." This answer drew some approving hums. But not everyone was convinced. A being from the metallic Orin species, known for their rigid systems, spoke in a flat tone. "This privacy you speak of is dangerous. If reproduction is hidden from oversight, what if it creates harm?" Kathiri rose this time. Their glow grew brighter. All heads turned toward the crystal diplomat. Their voice was steady. "Yesterday I asked a question without understanding," Kathiri said. "I saw something new and spoke too quickly. But I learned humans are not careless. They choose, they care. I learned about consent. It is a strong rule. Stronger than our mirror halls. It protects." The chamber grew quiet. The Orin delegate tilted their head unsure. "Consent is strong. Stronger than council rules?" "Consent is a rule," Kathiri said. "A quiet one. But it is a wall that no one may break." A soft shimmer of light crossed the ceiling, sign of agreement from several delegates. A problem spreads, but outside the chamber, the problem was growing. Messages were spreading across the public nets. Some misunderstood the human presentation, some exaggerated it, some joked, some were angry. Humans want to bring messy feelings into Concord. Humans will break our calm order. Is privacy safe? Inside the chamber, Juno could feel the weight of these whispers. Moderator Lynn said, "Some council members worry that humanity's culture will spread too fast, confusing younglings or weakening traditions. How do you answer this, Ambassador?" Juno lifted her head. Her voice stayed calm even though her heart beat fast. "We do not want to change anyone's way of life," she said. "We want to share who we are with respect. We also want to learn." Yesterday, Kathiri asked a question. It was awkward, but we both learned from it. That is how bridges are made. She gestured to Kathiri. They do not want to become human. They want to understand. Kathiri nodded. Yes, I love the mirror halls of my people. I do not wish to leave them. But now I know more about the humans. That is not danger. That is knowledge. Murmurs turned softer. A few lights changed from sharp blue to warm yellow, signs of approval from different species. Human ingenuity at that moment. An aide entered the chamber and whispered something to moderator Linne. Linne tapped their wrist. A wide hollow screen appeared above the floor. "Ambassador Alaric," Lynn said, "your people have prepared a program." Juno smiled slightly. "Yes, I believe the best way to ease fear is not with words alone. It is with understanding." The hollow screen lit up. A quiet, interactive program began to play. It had been built overnight by a small human science team on Celestia. It was called the Bridge of Care. The program showed a bright, animated world. No private details, only simple stories. In the first story, two people agreed to raise a child. They planted a small tree together. As time passed, the tree grew stronger as they cared for it. The message was simple: family is care. In the second story, a community helped a single parent build a home. The tree grew more leaves. The message: families can look different, but support makes them strong. In the third story, the child, now older, passed on a seed to others, sharing kindness and learning. The message: this is how humans build their future. The hollow translation system adapted the images to each alien viewer. To the bird-like Avra, the tree looked like a nest. To the mossy beings, it looked like a living sprout. To Kathiri's kind, it appeared as a glowing crystal tree. Everyone saw something they understood. Whispers grew soft. The Oran delegate leaned forward. "There is no chaos in this story," Juno said, "because we build safety from inside, not with commands but with trust." A difficult moment, but then an alarm light flashed on the holoboard. It was red. Moderator Lynn checked the alert. "A problem," they said. A group of young Concord citizens gathered in the station square. Some think human ways are dangerous. Some think they are exciting. They are arguing. Loudly. A murmur spread through the chamber. Juno's hands tightened for a moment. She had expected this. When something new appeared, people either feared it or rushed toward it without understanding. "Let me go," Juno said. Lynn nodded. "Go with care. The council will pause." The station square was an open circle of glass floors and hanging gardens. When Juno arrived, she saw dozens of young aliens from many species gathered around a glowing news post. Some shouted questions, some argued, some laughed. A tall feathered youth shouted, "Humans want no rules." A mossy youth answered, "No, they just want different rules." A small cube robot spun its head and said, "I want to plant a seed." "Do you even understand what that means?" Another alien snapped. The argument was growing fast. Juno stepped forward and raised her hand. The translator lights picked up her motion. Her calm voice carried through the square. "Stop," she said gently. The crowd turned. The noise softened but didn't stop. Juno didn't shout. She didn't wave. She stood steady. "You have many questions," she said. "That is good. But shouting is not learning." A feathered youth crossed their arms. "If you do things with no plan, how can your society survive?" Juno smiled kindly. "We do have plans, but they are made by people together, not by machines alone. We plan with trust." A mossy youth asked, "Is it true you can just choose to have a family?" "Yes," Juno said. "But choice does not mean chaos. Choice means responsibility." The cube robot asked, "Why does it matter?" "It matters," Juno said, "because how we build families is how we build worlds." The crowd grew quiet. The words were simple but strong. An unexpected ally Kathiri arrived soon after. Their glow shone bright in the square. Everyone knew them as the one who started the talk yesterday. They stepped forward and raised both crystal hands. I made the first loud question, they said. I was curious. I asked something clumsy, but I learned something important. Curiosity is not danger. It is only the start. The sun rose over the blue planet below the orbital station Celestia. Golden light spilled through the station's great windows and turned the polished floors warm and bright. It was the day of the final council decision. The future of humanity in the galactic concord would be decided today. Ambassador Juno Alaric stood in front of the mirror in her small living quarters. She wore the same neat navy suit but added a tiny silver pin, shaped like a small seed sprouting 2 leaves. It was a gift from Kathiri, the crystalline ambassador. It reminded her of the seed they planted together in the station square. She took a deep breath. Today wasn't just about defending human culture. It was about showing what made humans strong. Not their weapons, not their technology, but something quieter and deeper. A station holding its breath as Juno walked down the wide corridor toward the council chamber. The station felt different. It wasn't loud now. It was quiet, like the world holding its breath. The walls glowed with soft gold light, the usual morning color of Celestia. But everyone's eyes were on the same thing, the big vote. Groups of aliens gathered in clusters. Some murmured softly. Some held tiny holoscreens with live news. Some simply stared at the council hall doors as if waiting for something to rise. Juno saw young aliens near the garden square. They were watering the 2 little seeds they had planted, one from Earth and one from Kathiri's world. Overnight, both had sprouted. 2 thin stems stood side by side, reaching toward the artificial sky. Kathiri waited for Juno near the entrance. Their crystalline body glowed with soft green light this time, like leaves after rain. The seeds grew, they said. Juno smiled. That's a good sign. Do humans believe in signs? Kathiri asked. Not always, Juno said gently. But sometimes, signs give us courage. Together they entered the council chamber. The council chamber. The chamber was full. Every seat was taken. The bird-like Avra ruffled their feathers. The mossy beings pressed close together. The Oran delegates stood perfectly still like metal statues. The glowing translators above hummed softly. Moderator Lynn stood in the center of the chamber, tall and calm. Today, Lynn said, we decide if humanity will join the conquered. Yesterday there were questions. There was fear, but also learning. The lights in the ceiling shifted to a pale gold. That meant openness. Lynn continued, each species may speak once before the final vote. The voices of the galaxy. The first to speak was the Avra scholar. Their feathers shimmered like liquid silver. When humans first explained their way of reproduction, the Avra said, we feared chaos. But then we saw the bridge of care. We saw how choice can also create responsibility. I believe we can learn from this. Soft approving hums spread through the chamber. The mossy delegate rose next. Our kind grows children from spores in quiet pools. We thought humans were reckless, but now we see they build families through love, not just systems. That is a kind of strength. A small robot delegate beeped cheerfully. Humans make things without machines. They trust each other. I like that. A ripple of laughter rolled through the room. Then the Oran delegate, who had been the most strict and cold before, stood. Their metallic bodies shone under the ceiling lights. I still do not understand everything about humans. I still do not like unpredictability. But I have seen the seeds grow. I have seen Kathiri stand with them. I have seen no danger, only curiosity. I will not stand against them. The room grew warm with quiet approval. Finally, Kathiri stepped forward. All lights in the chamber seemed to lean toward their glow. I was the one who asked the clumsy question. Kathiri said clearly, I saw something strange, but humans did not mock me. They did not push me away. They answered with kindness. That is what makes them strong. Not power, not control, kindness. The human turned Juno walked to the center. She stood tall and steady even though her heart beat fast. Thank you, she said. When we came here, we didn't want to change the galaxy. We only wanted to share who we are. We are not perfect. Our way of life is sometimes messy. We argue, we make mistakes, but we also build trust. We care for our children, our families, and each other. She looked around the chamber, meeting many alien eyes. When Kathiri asked their question, some people laughed. Some were confused. Some were angry. But that question became a door. We stepped through it together. She pressed a small button on her wrist. The lights dimmed slightly. A new hollow image filled the chamber. It showed real humans on Earth, parents walking children to school, grandparents telling stories at night, friends helping build a small house, a teacher guiding a class in a sunny field, a group planting trees together after a storm. The hollow wasn't about technology. It wasn't about armies. It was about ordinary human care. This, Juno said softly, is who we are. The challenge, but not everyone was convinced yet. A tall delegate from a distant race, one that had remained silent before, rose. They were called the Thar. Their bodies were covered in smooth blue plates. Their eyes were sharp. Humans speak of care, the Thar said slowly, but we have seen other young species who said the same. Some brought conflict to the stars. How can we trust your kind will not try to force your ways on others? The chamber grew still. This was the final hard question. Juno didn't rush to answer. She stood still for a moment, then stepped forward. Her voice was calm. You cannot trust words alone, she said. But you can trust choices. She pointed at Kathiri. This is Kathiri. They are not human. We did not ask them to copy us. We did not try to change their ways. We only shared, and they chose to understand. She pointed toward the chamber doors. Outside, there are younglings of many species planting seeds together. We did not command them. They chose to do it. She placed a hand over her heart. That is what we bring. Not orders. Not power, choice. The Thar delegate stared at her for a long time. Finally, they nodded once and sat down. The unexpected gift Kathiri stepped forward again. Their glow turned golden white, bright and clear. I have a gift, they said. A mirror shard from my people's light halls. They held up a thin crystal shard. It glimmered like starlight. This shard reflects any light but never breaks it. It is how new Eltari are born. But today I give it to the humans. Not so they may use it, but so they may be seen. They handed the shard to Juno. When she touched it, the shard caught the soft yellow light from the ceiling and split it into 1,000 colors. The chamber filled with dancing lights, gold, blue, green, pink, silver. They painted every face with gentle colors. This is what happens, Kathiri said softly. When light meets something new, it does not end. It becomes more. The chamber was silent for a long, beautiful moment. The vote finally, Moderator Lin raised their hands. Delegates of the conquered. The time has come to vote. Each species had a glowing panel. A soft blue light meant no. A warm gold light meant yes, one by one. The lights began to turn. Gold, gold, gold. A few blue lights flickered, but most changed to gold. Even the Thar, who had questioned the most, slowly touched their panel. The blue turned to gold. When the last panel glowed, Lin raised their voice. By vote of the Council, Lin said clearly, humanity is welcomed into the Galactic Concord as a full member. The ceiling lights flashed bright gold. A soft wave of sound filled the chamber, not shouting, not chaos, but a deep shared hum of unity. Some species clapped their wings. Some touched their fronds together. The robots blinked happily. Juno stood still for a heartbeat, letting it sink in. Then she smiled, not a proud smile, but a warm, human one. The celebration. The station square was transformed into a festival that evening. No one had planned it in advance. It just happened. Delegates brought small pieces of their cultures, songs, lights, scents, flavors. The mossy beings grew glowing vines over the railings. The Avra sang soft sky songs. The cube robots projected jokes. Even the Orin stood near the fountain, shining like polished steel. Kathiri stood beside Juno, holding a cup of sparkling water. This, they said, is the loudest quiet I have ever heard. Juno laughed. Yes, that's what a happy crowd sounds like. She walked to the little seed patch. Both sprouts were taller now. Their leaves brushed gently in the artificial breeze. Around them, other species had planted more seeds. Flowers, crystals, spore pods, glowing moss. It had become a small living forest in the heart of the station. A young Avra came to Juno and said, We planted ours next to yours, so they can grow together. Juno knelt down, touched the soft leaves, and whispered, That's the idea. The galaxy learns later that night. The hollow news all across the station had a new headline. Humanity joins the conquered. Kindness. Not power wins the vote. There were no scary rumors now. No angry debates. Only curious questions. How do humans teach children? What are lullabies? What is a bedtime story? Small groups formed everywhere. Humans telling stories, aliens sharing their own family traditions. The mossy beings taught lullabies sung underwater. The Avra explained how their young learned to fly together. Juno told stories about campfires, rainy nights, and the warm smell of bread in the morning. No one forced anyone to copy. They simply shared. And something gentle began to grow between the species, not just treaties or trade, but trust. A quiet moment. When the celebration grew softer and the stars outside shone brighter, Juno and Kathiri went to the observation deck. The galaxy stretched before them like an endless sea.